Good morning and welcome to the Mendoza College of Business. I am Martijn Cremers. I serve as Dean of the college. I'm so pleased, honored, and excited to welcome our guest for this first 2022 Dean Speaker Series, head football coach Marcus Freeman. And I think you can hopefully see already why I'm so excited. I want to start by very briefly telling you my Notre Dame football story, which starts off really badly. I joined Notre Dame 10 years ago. At that point in time, I had never even watched a football game on television. The reason is simple. I was born and raised in the Netherlands, so football for us was soccer. Then I did grad school in New York City, and I was at Yale University for 10 years, and football simply never came up. And then I joined Notre Dame 10 years ago, and I'm very proud to say that in my 10 years here at Notre Dame, I've never missed a single home game at Notre Dame Stadium, except one. I had COVID, and guess what game I missed? I missed the Clemson game. Thank you, I appreciate that, okay? I had a lot of fun on my couch with my family, but... All right, let me go back to my introduction of Coach Freeman. So Coach Freeman was announced as the 30th head coach in the university's history on December 3rd, 2021. He first joined Notre Dame in 2021 as the defensive coordinator and previously served as a defensive coach at the University of Cincinnati, Purdue, and Kent State. He's just the third Notre Dame head coach to have been selected in the NFL draft, and the first since Ara Parseghian was drafted by the Pittsburgh Steelers in 1947. During his playing career, Coach Freeman was a 4-year letter winner for Ohio State from 2004 to 2008. He earned second-team All-Big Ten honors in 2008 while helping lead the Buckeyes to 4 conference titles, 3 BCS Bowls, and 2 trips to the national title game during his career. Coach Freeman was a 5th-round draft pick of the Chicago Bears, spending time with the Bears, the Buffalo Bills, and the Houston Texans before a medical condition ended his playing career. He earned a bachelor's and a master's degree from Ohio State. He and his wife, Joanna, have 6, I love that number, 6 children, Vinny, Sienna, Gino, Nico, Capri, and Rocco. I had the privilege to attend the introduction press conference. His answers resonated very deeply with me, and I'm sure many others watching the conference. I immediately thought about what a great honor and privilege it would be if Coach Freeman would join us here, and our students and everyone here would directly hear from him. So I very much look forward to our conversation. It's such a privilege to get to know you better, to learn from you about leadership, about teamwork, about commitment, to what you call the golden standard. Please join me in extending a warm welcome to Coach Freeman. So again, welcome. We're so grateful that you're joining us today. I want to start with this introduction press conference that I attended. I want to start with quoting yourself back at you. So I'm quoting you now. Okay. So, who is Marcus Freeman? Well, I'm the son of a man who was in the Air Force for 26 years. I'm the son of a woman who was born in Korea that came over here in 1976. But I tell you that because that's who I am. I get my discipline, my work ethic, my honesty from my father. I get my unselfishness and other-centered focus from my mother. And that's exactly how I will lead this football program. Can you share more of your story of growing up and the example set by your parents?
Yeah, you said that really well. You know, I've heard that before. No, that's my makeup. And it's sometimes as you get older, it takes reflection to realize why you're the person you are. And for me, it's years and years and years and saying, okay, why is Marcus Freeman the way he is? And it is because of the way I was brought up. You know, I remember being a kid, and I can't remember the exact age, but It was young, and my father used to wake me and my older brother. I had a brother that's 2 years older than me. He used to wake us up at 5 o'clock, and 5 in the morning, and we would run in place. And so we were standing in, we had a small 3-bedroom home, and so in one of the, it wasn't the living room, it was the family dining room. There was a weight bench in there. And so my dad would be finishing up his workout, and we would be running in place. And at that time, we obviously didn't love it. Now as a father, I'm like, man, is that child abuse, you know?
Nah.
And then we would begin our workout once he was done. But that's, again, why I value hard work. I value discipline, because that's how my father was. Being in the Air Force for 26 years, that's what his life was. And then my mother, you know, coming over here from Korea in 1976, you know, as a young person, you don't realize some of the sacrifices that individuals have to make. But as you get older, you realize, okay, so you left your family in Korea to follow this man from Korea to the United States. I kind of give my dad some credit too. Like, hey, that's pretty good to get her to leave Korea.
Yeah, it's a big move.
And so, but she worked 3 jobs. I remember being a kid, and she would go to her normal job, and then on the weekend she had a job, and at nights she would do some janitor work. And so we would go help her. And so that is, again, of why I'm the way I am. And I told the staff the other day, we work for the janitors, right? If there's something on the floor, we pick it up, and we work for our janitors. And that's, to me, a mindset that I've kind of gained from my mother, and being selfless and working tirelessly to make sure that her family has food on the table, and that, you know, she can do everything to make sure we had success. So that's kind of how I was up.
Yeah,
raised.
beautiful. Thank you. That's, you know, the emphasis on service to others, and yeah, your background very much resonated with me. Thank you. From growing up, can you share with us how you ended up at, if I say this right, the Ohio State University? So how did you decide that journey, and how was it to be a student athlete at Ohio State? At Mendoza, we are extremely proud of our student athletes, right? They perform at an elite level, both in academics and as athletes. And finally, any advice for our student athletes, or more generally for our students, or how to perform at an elite level?
Yeah, it was you know, you look back to your experience. For me, I was from Dayton, Ohio, and my father was from Columbus, Ohio. He grew up an Ohio State fan, so I was raised an Ohio State fan. And so when I became a high school football player and I got a scholarship to Ohio State, I just knew that's where I was going to go, you know, and it was awesome. You think about the experience, you think about the friendships you make. I'm actually currently working with James Ornitis, who was one of my college teammates, and he's our GA. So I said, this is a little bit of payback for all the credit he used to get for being a great defensive player, you know. But it's awesome because of the relationships you make, and that's, to me, that the things that always stick out. I can see a guy had another former player that was here, another former teammate that was here for a hockey event with his kids, and he called me and said, hey, I'll be in South Bend, would love to see you. And it's like, and that had to be 12 years ago. And it's like we haven't missed a day. And that's what I remember about my experience, is the relationships, the times that at any moment somebody can pick up the phone and call, and you'll be there for your teammates. That's why I love playing the game of football, and that's why I love coaching the game of football. You know, any advice, you said any advice, I would say appreciate the hard work. Really, really understand it. Value the wisdom you gain in college, because sometimes when you're there, you don't appreciate it. I did it. You know, you just wanted to get the grade you wanted to, you need it. But to really, if I could go back and do it again, I would say, you know what, I'm going to value the wisdom you gain, and I'm going to work so hard at it, because wisdom is so powerful. And that's why this Notre Dame degree to me is the greatest thing for a college coach to sell, because it's so powerful, but you're forced to gain the wisdom. You can't cheat here. And that's what I tell the recruits, and I tell people, you're going to have to go to class. You're going to have to study, or you're not going to get the grade you deserve to make sure you stay eligible. And so understand it, but really, really appreciate it while you're here, because it's going to help you for the rest of your life.
Yeah, thank you. I think I went through a similar journey myself. In Amsterdam, when I was a undergraduate. I primarily worked for the grades, and it was only in graduate school that I really fell in love with academics and research and decided to become a professor. So you decided after your NFL career, you decided to become a coach. Can you share more with us? Why do you coach, and why do you coach at Notre Dame?
Yeah. Well, it's funny, you said I was in when you gave me my introduction, I was on 3 teams in 1 year, so quickly I learned, hold on, I'm not that good, so I was, and when I got into coaching, I was a GA at Ohio State, and, when you're probably in college and you think about coaching, you think, man, my coach is always around sports, and they get to yell at us, and they get to make good money, and they're on the sidelines or on the basketball court or whatever sport it is. But quickly for me, I learned I got my most satisfaction from watching players succeed, right? When you can give a young person advice, you can give them tips, skills that they can help them succeed. That was, to me, right away I learned that's why I do it, right? And that's why I coach here, right? I love coaching young people. I love seeing them have success. I love seeing our coaches have success, right? One of the greatest feelings for me as the defense coordinator here last year was when we won at Wisconsin. Versus Wisconsin, played really good on defense, but Coach Kelly became the winningest head coach in Notre Dame history. And that was just a great moment for me because I love to see people succeed. I love to see our players have success. And so that's my motivation. I've said that before. That's my inspiration, is to work my tail off to try to develop relationships with young people, ultimately so you can see others have success.
Thank you. So at Notre Dame, we are a faith-based institution, right? Our Catholic mission is central to what we do. And for business, I always like to say, both with a capital C, but also with a small c, right? Based on universal Catholic with a small c human principles. Can you share with us how your faith informs your leadership and your decision-making?
Yeah, absolutely. I embrace it. And two verses in the Bible that really stick out to me is one is love your neighbor, and who's your neighbor? Who is your neighbor? Everybody's your neighbor. And that goes to treating people with respect. And that goes to no matter what your role is, no matter who you are, you treat others with respect. And then the other one is I was told at a young age, to whom much is given, much is required. And that's my reminder that, you've been given a great opportunity to be the head coach at the University of Notre Dame. Well, guess what? You better work your tail off, and you better work tirelessly to make sure that you do everything in your power to have success, right? And I'm not Nick Saban, right? I don't know exactly what the process truly is yet to be the national championship head coach. Well, until I truly figured out my thought process, let's work as hard as we can. Let's outwork every opponent that we have. And then after the season, we'll evaluate it. And we'll say, okay, hey, maybe we are national champions. Hey, this was the right process. Or maybe this is an area we need to improve at. But until you truly know exactly what it takes, to me, you have to continue to just work tirelessly to figure it out.
Yeah, and I think faith and humility, I think they are natural partners.
Amen.
So I want to switch to leadership. As a coach, naturally, you are a leader, right? At the business school, we very much are trying to help prepare our students, right, for leadership positions in business and society. So what have you learned as a coach about leadership, or how would you describe your leadership style?
A lot of people call me a player's coach, and I was reminded of that last weekend when I saw Coach Holtz. Flew down to Florida, got a chance to spend time with Coach Lou Holtz, and the first thing he said to me was, I don't know if any of my former players would ever call me a player's coach. And I said, oh, here we go. Here we go. And so I think throughout the course of that evening, he understood the way I lead. And the first thing I do is I want to gain their trust. And how do you do that? I think you got to open your heart. You got to be I don't want any curtains around me. I want our players to know me as Marcus Freeman the husband, Marcus Freeman the father, and I don't want to hide anything, So I give our players a heart. I'm honest with them. I'm a teammate. We're in this thing together, right? Once you gain that trust, now you can push them. Now you can go as far as they need to go, you can push them. But if you don't have that trust, at some point, they're going to push back, right? But I think if they trust you and they know who you are and they feel like you all have a connection, you can continue to push, and they'll just say, okay, coach, I know you care about me. I'm going to do it. We had it this morning in the weight room. Coach Bayless, he tries to, our strength coach, he tries to borderline hurt our players. And, me as the head coach, I want to be a part of it. And so you have to push these young guys, but they have to know you care and they trust you.
Okay. So thank you. You mentioned Coach Holtz. Who are your heroes and mentors?
For sure my parents, right? For sure the example they set, maybe not the things they say as much as just watching them, observing them, and my college coach was Jim Tressel, somebody I still talk to often. And a lot of times when something comes across my desk, is like media. Katie would bring something, hey, how do you want to do spring media? Well, hold on, let me call Coach Tressel and see what he would say. And so that is a huge mentor of mine. Coach Fickle, who I was with at Cincinnati with for 4 years, and then he was my college position coach. And so a lot of the things I see myself or actions that I might make was because I've seen him do it. He's very successful and it's been awesome for me to observe. And then, ever since I've gotten here, Jack Schwarbrick has been a tremendous resource and mentor for me. He came and talked to our staff maybe 3 days ago and gave a history of the University of Notre Dame. And I told him, I wrote him a note and I said, that's going to be a reason why we win a next national championship. Because if we understand how special this place is, how special the people are, the history of this place, it's going to make sure you appreciate it and understand the privilege we all have to work here.
Thank you. Next, I want to go to a difficult topic.
Okay.
At least, from my perspective. The NFL has been accused of racial discrimination, especially in head coaching jobs, with the latest challenge brought by a lawsuit by former Miami Dolphins head coach Brian Flores. What is your view of that situation? And more broadly, how do you see our responsibility as educators to our students when it comes to diversity, equity, and inclusion, which is very much a key priority for the university and, of course, for Mendoza?
Yeah, when you look at the big picture of what Brian Flores did, I have a lot of respect for him because it takes a lot of courage to do what he did and to really challenge the NFL. And you talk about billionaires, you talk about some of the richest and most powerful people in this country. It took a lot of courage for him to do that. He lost a lot of money from what I hear by saying, no, I'm not going to sign this non-closure agreement. I'm not going to sign this agreement where I can't speak about the things that he's been talking about. And so I have a lot of respect for men of courage, right? Our country we need young people to have courage. And we do, but we need to continue to develop that. The representation of minorities in coaching has to improve, right? But for me, I would never waver off of my core values for what I'm looking for, right? So this is how I like to say it in terms of we need to make sure that, we help develop minority candidates so they are the best candidate, right? And that's where my focus is that, hey, I'm a representation of a minority coach. And so how can I help prepare other minority coaches to be in a position to have success, right? And so diversity is good.
Yep.
Diversity in your core values, though, isn't good. So if you have a core value as a university, right, don't waver from that. If there's something you're looking for, don't waver from that. But if the person that you are looking for is a minority and he has the core values to have success, I really believe that diversity is a great thing. And I think there is power in young people seeing somebody maybe that they resemble in a position of leadership. Mm-hmm. There is power to that. And I don't know exactly why that is. That's maybe how God made us, but you can naturally see young people, if they see somebody It doesn't have to be the color of your skin. It may be the color of your hair. It could be a female or a male.
Yep.
But if young people see somebody that resembles them in a position of leadership, I think there's power in that.
Yep. Thank you. Are there things that you do to try to build an inclusive culture, that everybody, right, feels that they really belong, that they are at home?
It's really easy to do in the football organization because you're judged off your action. You're judged on whether you're a guy that we can count on or you're not. And so that's why for me, really till I became a coach, you didn't see, in a locker room, you don't see color. You see guys that you can count on and guys that you can't count on. And that's why I love being a part of a locker room and love being a part of a team, because that's in the football, in a football organization, that's how you're judged. And so we have to continue to recruit all types of different people, but at the end of the day, be very clear on our standards of we're going to count on and play the guys that we know are going to get the job done.
Yep. Thank you. So about getting the job done, how do you develop young men to get the job done? Right? How do you approach teaching young people how to grow in skill and virtue? Right? How to help them to handle personal and team failures and learn from those as well?
Ooh, that's good. This is a good team meeting right here. It's for me is a constant message of improvement. Mm-hmm. How do we continue to get better? I don't care how good you are, right? You see often that people are better at keeping their jobs than getting better at their job, right? I just want to keep my job. I want to be the starter and stay the starter instead of getting better at being the starter at your position. And so we often talk about how do you get better at skills, right? The skills. And so you have talent, okay? You have a skill. But talent plus, to me, the work, right? The work. And that's what we got to talk about, that work aspect of it. And so we really kind of have a formula. We say, hey, identify the skill you want to get better at and study it. Right? If I want to be a better football coach, what part of football coaching do I want to get better at? Right? Identify that skill and study it. Then do intentional work. Whatever that work is, you need to think about it. How intentionally am I going to work at getting better at my skill? Maybe it's I want to be a special teams. As a head coach, I want to be more involved in special teams. Okay, I've identified it. I'm going to put the work in at watching special teams film, meet special teams coaches. All right? Then you got to be pushed outside your comfort zone. You can't do what just is natural. Like, you really got to push yourself outside your comfort zone. Yep. And then the hardest part is you got to get feedback. And that is uncomfortable for a lot of people, our players, our coaches. Like, do we really like being told what we're not good at? But that's the only way you grow.
Yep. Right?
That's the only way you grow is if you seek feedback and you really want it and listen to it, that's where you'll see major growth in the skill set.
Yeah, you can only stretch if you go where you haven't been before, right? And how do you even know when you're there? Well, you need to listen to other people tell you that you're not there yet, or what it will take to get there. So I have one last question, and then we'll open it up, and many of you will, I'm sure, have questions. You may have heard of this person before, Jerome Bettis. He just came back to Mendoza to finish his undergraduate business degree 30 years after he left Notre Dame, because he wanted to send a message to his kids about the importance of education. So my first question is, if he has any eligibility left, did you recruit him to the team? Okay. Second, how do you present the importance of academics to your players?
Yeah, I don't know if he has eligibility left, but we definitely would use him. And he might be more of a fullback for us right now, but he would be really good no matter where he was at. But academics are so important. Like, Jerome Bettis being back here is awesome. He talked to our team a couple of days ago, and I told the team, this is what I aspire for you all to be. Right? I want you to be the greatest college football player you can be at your position, right? I want you to be the first pick in the NFL draft. I want you to be a top 10 pick in the NFL draft. I mean, that's what I want all of our players to do. I want you to play 13 years in the NFL, just like Jerome Bettis did. and then be a Pro Football Hall of Famer. Like, that's what I aspire for our kids. But I also want you to understand there's things that Jerome Bettis did while he was playing that helped set him up for life after football. And that's what we have to understand, that this isn't a plan B. Like, there's not a plan B if I'm not good. No, this is a plan for life after football. And that, to me, is what Jerome Bettis is showing, is that you have to value this degree. You value the education. Yes, Jerome Bettis is coming back to finish his degree for his family, his kids, his mother, he promised. But also, the more time I spend with Jerome Bettis, he wants to get his degree because he wants to be the best businessman he can be. Yep. And he knows that degree is going to help him continue to rise in the business world. And so that's another part of Jerome Bettis that, hey, he's a competitor now. He wants to be the best, and getting this degree will help him continue to rise in that area, that profession. So he is exactly what I hope our players are.
Great. Yeah. Thank you. So let's open it up. We have Gene and Beth, who really are, let me start with thanking them for helping us organize this event. They have microphones, and so if you raise your hands, they can.
When you're looking at a recruit, like, what are some of the most important things that goes into determining if they'll be a good person in the Notre Dame community?
Yeah, I got almost like a process I look for a couple of things, and number one is not athletic. It's competitiveness. How competitive is this kid? You got to talk to his coach. You got to watch his film. You got to watch him when the game's on the line. Is this a competitive person? Because competitive people win. Competitive spirit is a part of the golden standard we talk about in our program, but competitive people usually win, right? Yes, athleticism. You got to be a certain size. You got to be a certain way. You got to be athletic. There's measurables to playing in Notre Dame Stadium. 3 is toughness. How tough are you? There's a difference between being tough and competitive. I want to see how tough he is. 4 is the intelligence. At Notre Dame, you better be smart, and you better. And I'm not saying there's a certain GPA or ACT score, SAT score. I'm saying, but does he have intelligence, right? Does he go to school? Does he miss school? Right? Those are things I look for. And the last thing is leadership. We need more leaders, and that's something that we've been. I'm gonna go off on a tangent real quick. This is something that we've been talking about, is leadership, right? And that this whole notion of leaders by example. We don't love leaders by example, right? Because leaders by example, we say, are guys that do what they're told to do. They do everything they're asked, right? They do it probably at a high level. That's why we call them leaders by example. But they don't say things when their teammates aren't reaching a standard, right? And aren't performing to the standard. We can't have that. That's just a guy that just does his job, right? You're performing at the standard. We need more leaders, right? And that's why I said recruit leaders, guys that are willing to hold their teammates accountable, because it's going to make your teammate better, right? I want to make everybody in our organization the best they possibly can be. So if I let you cut corners, or I don't say something to you when you're falling under the standard, then I'm not helping push you to the best you can be. So leadership is really, really big for us.
Hey, Marcus. Tom McCabe, Mendoza, class of '87. And first of all, welcome to the greatest business school in the world, right here.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Except I'm so old that I was educated in Hayes Healy Hall on the South Quad, so a couple buildings over. Parents were Buckeyes. Dad played for Woody, so I was raised Buckeye, but I bleed Irish.
Amen,
so
brother.
There we go. One more point. My good friend Daryl Gordon, who played linebacker for Lou, I don't think the two of you could tackle Jerome today.
You're probably
and by the way, nose guard, not fullback. My question's pretty straight and simple. Knowing Thomas Reese, he likes to be known as Thomas now, not Tommy. He's a grown man who I grew up with in Lake Bluff, Illinois. You are now the chief executive officer of the greatest football team, college football team there is. You got a big responsibility. You got a great defense, and you obviously are going to have a great defense. Talk a little bit about how your role has segued really quickly to where you just hired a coordinator. He's going to run a great defense. It may or may not be your defense. It'll be a great defense. But how your role is going to change your leadership, your day-to-day life, as we get ready to win in Columbus in about 4 months and beat your alma mater. We're going to beat your alma mater, by the way. your role is very different. Forget days like today. Forget days like when you go talk to the Chicago Alumni Club. But the football life here, what's it going to be like going forward as CEO of the program with the offense and the overall game management, and probably one of the most important things, and I won't speak about our prior coach, managing the clock with a minute to go. Thank you.
Wow, that was a lot in that question.
It's like 5 questions at least.
Yeah, I don't know if I'll answer every part of that, but the role changing from being a defensive coordinator to head coach, the biggest thing I think is your daily focus. And it's gone from every day last year was how do we continue to find ways to stop offenses, right? Every day, okay, how can I look at our scheme and find different ways to stop opponents? My mindset has changed as a head coach in terms of how do you serve your players and your staff? How do we take care of these kids? How do we take care of our staff? And how do we make sure, one of those, you brought up a great point. When you become the head coach, you think you make every decision. Hey, I'm going to hire every person that I want to hire. I'm going to bring every person here. No, because that's not what's best for your staff. You empower those around you, right? You hold them to high standards, but you know what? I'm going to empower you to make sure you feel like you have what's necessary to have success. And so I'm going to be whatever Coach Reese needs me to be, all right? And I'm going to be his biggest supporter. And I'm going to do everything in my power to make sure he has every necessary tool to have success on offense. And so part of that's going to be recruiting. I love recruiting. That's to me probably the quickest way you change the results on the field is you continue to find the best players in the country that obviously fit Notre Dame. And so that's kind of been my role shift in terms of, my day-to-day operation. But when I get time to go into that offensive and defensive staff room, that's such a relief for me. That's my comfort zone, right? Is going there and looking and talking ball and being around our players. But that's what I want to do. I want to make sure I empower our staff to have as much success as we can.
We'll take the clock management.
We'll deal with that at that first game, right?
Hi, so you talked a little bit about your transition to leadership. Now, some of the other athletic programs on campus have also experienced some turnover in athletic coaching staff. And also just in the business world, the professional world, a bunch of us will experience professional turnover and leadership. What would your advice be for those who experience that kind of turnover, and how do they become leaders in their position as either members of the team or other professionals in the business world?
That's good. Change is good. Change is good, and I think those that resist change and those that don't want change, usually they have their most difficult time with transition, And so if I'm a student athlete and we have a change in our leadership, go with the mindset, change is good. Not looking at somebody saying, okay, well, who is this person? What are you going to be? Be excited because change is good. Then try to kind of find a way to make sure you make the connection. And it's the same way if you're the leader, right? Change is good. Change is good. This is good. Now, how do I have that connection with our staff, our players? And so I think having the mindset of change is good, but also you have to be who you are. That's the greatest advice I got when I became the head coach. You don't have to change who you are at the core of your heart. Some of your responsibilities change. The way people look at you maybe will change. I did the same thing, right? Previously, if I was the defensive coordinator and you said, okay, you're going to be the head coach, you're going to think you're a completely different person. You're not. Same guy that was at Ohio State, Purdue, Kent State, and Cincinnati. But your day-to-day responsibilities do change. But I would just continue to be who you are, right? Be who you are. We've talked about who Marcus Freeman is, and I'm going to continue to be that way.
Hi, Coach Freeman. I'm hoping that I can call you my Coach Freeman. Absolutely. What do I have to do to make it as a walk-on?
That's good. Hey.
I think it's time for a sequel to Rudy, and I'm ready to play the main character, so.
Hey, listen. Hey, I made a comment earlier about empower your staff, right? Well, we got a member of our staff here that is the director of player development, right? No, player personnel, right? So he's in charge of the walk-on process. His name's Dave Peloquin. Dave, you might as well stand up because he's a Mendoza grad. You know, you should stand up. Dave Peloquin, you know. He is a Mendoza grad. He is in charge of everything that really has to do with our personnel and our roster. And so we'll make sure you two connect, all right? I'm going to empower my staff.
Hello.
Oh, sorry.
So a lot of us in the business school are probably following Ukraine and Russia and the economic sanctions, but my question I'm hoping can tie to the game of American football, where in December the NFL announced international home marketing arenas and NFL teams can go and play in certain countries. For Notre Dame football, in recent years we've had some international talent, Chase Claypool, Justin Yoon as a Korean American. My question to you as a multicultural head coach, how do you see the American game evolving to be more of an international game, and do you plan to leverage that in the Dublin game in 2023?
Yeah, that's great. We have to, I mean, this is the most global brand in college football, I feel, you know, and I might be biased, but we have to utilize that. It's the most recognizable brand. And so for us to be able to go into different countries and find that talent, that's what the game's coming to. We have a couple kids already on our team. I'm thinking about Alex. Alex is from Germany, right? And so we have to be able to search the entire world. This game is expanding. So going to Dublin, Ireland, like we are next year, to me is another great opportunity for us to show our brand of football. But we're always looking to enhance our roster and what we do. And that doesn't have to be with an American football player. That can be with the best football players in the world. And so we'll always look at doing that.
Hi, Coach. Thanks for speaking with us today. I like to say I came to school here for $200 season tickets, and being a student in Mendoza is a nice bonus. What I mean to say is that you've got a phenomenal fan base and a lot of students here and people throughout the world who would love to see Notre Dame succeed on the football field, as well as the success we see in the classroom and in the world. I think we've seen with Mike Bray in the last year. Last season, unfortunately, we had people chanting, "Fire Mike Bray," and this season I think he's come back and kind of leveraged the student body to have a really great atmosphere at games and sit in second place in the ACC. How do you see the student body here servicing your football program and helping you towards that ultimate goal of winning a national championship?
It's so important. It's so important. And that's one of the things we saw in recruiting is that our players are so connected with our student body that it gives us an advantage. So those 8,000 students that are in the stadium, we know who they are. We're connected with them. We're in the dorms with them. And so it's so important to us that we have the support of our student body. You know, for me, I try not to pay attention, like you said, to fire Coach Bray. Like, you can't. They said the same thing about me after our first 2 games last year. So I kind of had to have the mindset of, hey, take care of the things you have to take care of. But to answer your question, it's so important that we are connected with our student body because it gives us a competitive advantage. It really, really does. And our players and our coaches feel that.
1, 2, 3.
Coach Freeman, first of all, it's an honor to see you. We've been talking in the community in South Bend and the region. This is the Michiana region, and you happen to be the new face of Notre Dame. Most of the main coaches is the face of this institution. And not only do we have your face, we have Miss Ivy's face. And I happen to be a big fan of the women's basketball. And this summer I had the opportunity of volunteering with Dean Martin and Martin Johnson when we brought in members of the organization Alpha Phi Alpha to be recruited into the various 14 or so different programs at Mendoza. And my dream was, I said, I wish I could stand in the middle of the football field. I said, I've got a Rudy vision. not to play, man. I did my football days, 4 years, 4 years in high school, 2 years in college. But I came and stood in that field, and I looked, and I felt the history. I felt the synergy. This is my first year, full year in South Bend, working at the Innovation Center, Mendoza, and working in the city. And one of the things that I really am excited about is for the first time we have a coach who the people, African Americans, Hispanics, Asians, can identify with. That's important. And sometimes our students get locked up in university, and I hope there are opportunities for students to encourage them to get involved with the community. And from being from Ohio, I got a feeling you've got some sense of that. And how would you go about encouraging your students to understand the importance of getting the support of the community around them as well?
Yeah, that's a good one. You know, I want to be a part of our community, you know, not only just the University of Notre Dame, but the South Bend, the Granger, the greater area, the greater community of this area. But it's such a positive impact, right? When you, to me, you put community before self when you do that, right? When you become a part of the community, you become a part of something bigger than yourself. That to me is why I was created, you know, and community is huge. And it helps you continue to, I think, connect, right? Connect with others, connect with people that maybe are different than you, right? Community doesn't always mean be around people that are like you, right? But you can get the best out of people that might not look like you, might not think like you. And so I think there's tremendous value in connecting with your community. Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Coach, thanks for being here. Was kind of intrigued on kind of how you built your coaching staff, kind of touching on kind of the opportunities and challenges within that, and kind of like our running backs coach saying, turning down the NFL to kind of be a head coach, kind of coming out of here. So you can kind of touch on how you built Marcus Freeman's staff and kind of what that means for the program.
Yeah. I always tell this joke that I lied to Jack Swarbrick when I said, hey, we're going to keep all of our coaches the same and not have any change if you make me the head coach, and we've had to hire 7 new coaches. So, but it's something you learn very quickly that coaches, any individual associated with Notre Dame is attractable. And so we made a couple of changes, but the other ones were because they left to be coordinators. And that's a part of this. And I don't ever want to hold somebody back to continue to reach their ultimate goal, right? And if this is something that somebody comes to me and says, this is what I aspire to do, aspire to be, and this is a great opportunity, I couldn't be happier for it. Because as I said earlier, like, I'm here to serve our players and our coaches and our staff to make sure we all reach their goals. Now, when you go to finding that right person, you can feel some pressure, right? You feel, and I get more pressure from our players because they look for a leader. We have 10 coaches, 10 assistant coaches, and I call them 10 unit leaders. You're the head coach of your unit. Well, when one of those coaches leave, you feel an emptiness from your players, like, who's leading us? And so I don't love to rush through the process, but I want to make sure I speed it up. And so I want to, number one, identify good people, people that are going to love kids, people that are going to make sure that they put players before self, right, and make sure that we're giving our players our hearts. 2, I want good football coaches, good scheme, tactical guys, you know, guys that know the game of football. And 3, dynamic recruiters. In order for us to achieve the success we want, we have to bring in the best players in the country, and we have to make sure that all 10 coaches are dynamic recruiters.
Coach, John Donovan, I'm an accounting professor here in Mendoza. So as a business professor, I want to hear your thoughts on the business of college football and specifically NIL. And I'm wondering what we as a Notre Dame community can do better to help our players leverage the platform that Notre Dame provides.
This is great. You know, it's a part of football. It's a part of college football right now. It's a part of college sports, NIL, name, image, and likeness. And so the best thing, number one, we always start with, we have something that nowhere else has, and that's what we consider our 4 for 40. right? And the players that we have here and the players that we're recruiting, if they don't appreciate that and they don't value that, they're not going to make it at Notre Dame. And so that's the first thing we sell to them. Number two, yeah, you're at Notre Dame. And so we have the strongest brand in college football. So you should be able to capitalize off your name, image, and likeness. And so I can't do anything about it. I can't. As coaches, we are not allowed to do anything, but we have a strong brand. And you should and you will be able to capitalize off name, image, and likeness.
Hi, Coach Freeman. Not really a question, but Dr. Alicia Bates in the Office of Student Activities, and so if you are looking for additional ways to get involved with students and connect with them, we have a ton of programming that we'd love to connect you with.
Absolutely. Katie?
Coach, thank you again for coming and speaking with us. Last time we talked was at my inter-hall flag football game when you came out to support Hayden and I. And I think we can credit you for the win there. Just really shows how much of a Notre Dame guy you are. And like just showing like Hayden's a recruiting assistant, you coming out and supporting him, really doing something for someone like, no offense Hayden, lower on the totem pole. How do you make... As a leader, and especially now, you've gone from a GA at Ohio State to the head football coach at the most prestigious program in the nation. How do you still work every day to make everyone from a DC to a walk-on feel important?
Geez, Hayden, lowest on a totem pole? Like, I just said, hey, recruiting's number one. Now you're high on the totem pole, man. You know? And so, a little bit of that, yeah, that's my mom, right? I told selfless, but it's also Jim Tressel, right? I spent time with Coach Tressel, and the one thing he did was make everybody feel important. He had a unique way. Now as the head coach, I realize why, because you know what, Hayden's role as a recruiting assistant is as important as my role to make sure we win a national championship. And so your role, how big your role is, has nothing to do with its importance. Right? And so that's a message that I continue to send to our entire staff. I don't care if you're a walk-on that doesn't play, or you're the starting quarterback, or you're the head coach, or you're somebody that works in our cafeteria. You accomplishing your role, right? You doing your job is just as important as mine to making sure we win a national championship. So that's why I came out to see Hayden, because he's important to us. When he does his job, guess what? We're that much closer to being the best football program we can be. And so to go out and support him and watch him play a little football, that was definitely something fun to do, you know. Get back to work.
Hi, Coach. My name is Ambrose. I'm from Uganda. I've been here this is my second semester, and my friend Kevin has been teaching me the rules of football because home it's soccer. It was my first time watching football. So I was taking my time to learn the rules. But the day you gave that speech when you announced as coach, I fall in love with football. Like I felt like I knew you for years. I knew football for years. I was like, I can do anything to see that our team wins. I'm now wondering, like, Marcus, how do you do that? Like, how do you radiate that energy, that love for the game, your values to even strangers in a minute?
Oh, that's great, man. That's awesome. That's humbling to hear that. You know, that means a lot. And you made me think of something. You said this game of soccer or football. I was with Coach Holtz on Sunday, and he said, hey, our American football is so important, they named the game after it, you know? And so we have to value that football. But I don't know, I am who I am, right? And the days or the times, there's moments in the day where I don't want to be go, 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 but the power of talking to myself, right? Self-talk is strong, and so if I want to be lazy, I can be lazy, but that's not going to help us win a national championship. Having energy is important. That's a part of one for yourself, but energy providers are contagious, you know? And so the ability to be around, I love being around people that have energy because it makes me have energy, right? Energy is contagious. And so I think that's important to have as a leader. If I get up as a leader and I'm down here and I have no enthusiasm, what do I expect our players to do? Right? And so what I don't want to be is a leader that says to do something that he's not willing to do. Right? Maybe I can't lift and run and do all those things they do, but I can work out, you know, and show them that I'm willing to stress my body a little bit, you know, and I just, at the end of the day, again, I think you have to open your heart. You have to be a open vest for your players, that they feel like they know who you are, right? That's how you earn their trust. Character, right? You say the things, you live the things that you say, right? You're competent. Like, I can make you a better football player. I can do some things to help you improve at the game. And 3, is there a connection? Do we have a personal connection that maybe is outside of football? If you have those 3 things, I believe truly that you can gain the trust of your players.
Hey, Coach. Since coming here to Notre Dame, do you have anything favorite about Notre Dame or favorite Notre Dame tradition since coming here and now becoming the head coach?
Yeah, there's a lot. There's many. And I really love going to Basilica and coming out that God Country Notre Dame door. It's something special about that. The game day locker room, I still get chills, right? It's just, there's something so special. To be able to walk down that tunnel and touch the Play Like a Champion side. There's just so many things about this place. I love when it gets warmer outside to be able to just walk on campus. I mean, it's the most beautiful place I've ever been. And so I wish I could pick just one, but there's so many traditions that I'm going to continue to learn. There's some place. This is the first time for me being in Mendoza, and it ain't going to be the last time. All right.
Thank you. Here maybe a quick shout out for one tradition that you may not be familiar with, but to get a steak sandwich from the Knights of Columbus on game day. Okay. Quick shout out to the Knights.
Where do you do that at?
So they have the old post office right on the very center of the campus.
Okay.
They are our largest, one of our largest student clubs, and everything goes to charity. So it's a really good steak sandwich, and everything goes to charity.
Okay.
It's one of our great traditions here on campus.
I like that.
Hello, thank you for being here. I'm just wondering if you are able to reflect on your life and your coaching experience and just your experience as an adult, if there's any mistakes you can look back on and that you've learned from that maybe you would think that we could also be able to reflect or learn something from as a young professional getting ready to work in the workforce.
Yeah. I'm at that moment in my life where, like, things happen so fast, and when you have 6 kids, it just, holy cow. I mean, they grow fast, they're crazy, everything's just a constant cycle. It's just go, go, go. And so I try to really remind myself to enjoy it, slow it down, and truly take time to enjoy the position I'm in, the journey I've been on, because it's gonna go by so quick, you know, and I hope that quick is a long, long time, really, in the matter of years, but it will go by quick. And so enjoy life, you know, enjoy the relationships you have. I mean, I have the greatest wife in the world, that just, for her to be able to be a single parent at times, because in football, you don't have a lot of time to spend at home, and so she takes care of the 6 kids, and really trying to enjoy the experience. Something I do is I tell her anytime she can to bring our kids into our office. And I don't care if it's for a 10-minute lunch. I want our kids, one, to see me, be able to just physically see their dad. But also, I think it teaches valuable lessons to our players, right? As I said before, I want our players to see me as a husband and a father. Because if they don't learn any football from me, they're going to see, hey, okay, this is how he is as a husband and this is how he is as a father. Because some of them don't have those. And so that's just different reminders to enjoy the ride. Take this thing one day at a time, and it's going to go by fast.
Thank you. We have time for one last question, I'm afraid.
Coach Freeman, just want to, over here, sorry. I have a question about the value of sports. So as you said to Dean Cremers before, obviously you're going to push every single one of your guys to be the best they can be, and if that gets them to a D1 or a first-round draft, that's awesome. Obviously, for many of your guys, that's not going to be the case. And for guys like me, who the best we're going to do is move the chains for inter-hall football, obviously sports plays a different role. So whether or not it be through your program or organized sports in general, what role do you think organized sports should play or can play in developing leaders outside of the sports world?
Yeah, that's great. I love the team sports. Right now, there's positives to team sports and there's positive to individual sports. And so I believe team sports, organized sports, they create selflessness, right? You have to be able to work with other people to achieve a common goal, right? So you have to be able to put others before self. And that's something that's preached to our players every single day because they all want to be the first round pick. But at the end of the day, it's about team. How do we make sure that I put others before myself to achieve a common goal? But there's also what happens in team sports is when you don't have success, it's easy to go, I did my job. What about you guys? Right? If you would have done better and you would have done better, we would have won the game. That's where we have to have the individual sport mindset. My son wrestles, okay? And so when you wrestle, if you lose, there's nobody else to point the finger at. And so I say to our team all the time, we got to have a wrestler's mindset when things don't go wrong, when things don't go right, right? We all have to look at ourselves and say, what can I do to make sure that I improve at so us as a team have success? And so I think there's such positive lessons to learn from team sports and individual sports to have success.
Well, let me then, as a conclusion, share my gratitude and appreciation. First, for everyone who made this event possible, starting with Jean and Beth and the technology people and many others who made it possible. Let me also not forget you, Rob Kelly, for making this possible. Second, thank you. Second, for all of you coming, a special shout out to the one baby on top. And most importantly, of course, thank you, Coach, for coming.